What are we doing, man? What are we doing, Sony? God, bro, what are we doing? Yo, what's up, everybody? It is your boy Brandon, and guess what? Today is an amazing day because we get to hear about the brand new A1 Mark II. Been waiting for this for a minute. The funny thing is, I haven't even watched the video yet. And I've been at work, military stuff, blah. And I had to wait until I came home to watch the actual presentation. So I said, what better way to actually listen to the presentation and watch the presentation than to do it, to make a video on it without actually even seeing it yet. All right. Now, I am not going to say I haven't heard some things and what's been going on, but I wanted to specifically watch it for myself first and actually commentate on it through the video, and you guys can actually watch it with me if you haven't seen it yet to get my actual reaction about the A1 Mark II. I know there's probably some hidden things in there that I haven't heard about. Everybody's been giving their opinion. So we're going to get right into the video. I'm going to play the presentation. And then I will talk about it as the presentation goes on. I'll stop in and give you my opinion on it. So I'm just hoping they did what they were supposed to do. All right. So let's go ahead and get into the presentation.
Electronics President and COO, Neil Manowitz.
Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to Creative Space. I am thrilled that once again we can bring our community together, both here in New York and all around the world.
Go ahead and fast forward until I actually start talking about the
unrivaled.
I don't know why I'm nervous. I'm nervous because I know Sony and I know what.
We proudly present the Alpha 1 Mark II.
Mark II. Oshima.
Do you notice anything? No? 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 Okay. Yes, that's not all.
So
in addition to the Alpha 1 Mark II, we are delighted to introduce our new F2 Zoom, FE2870 F2G Master.
Okay. No surprises yet.
I'm so excited too, yeah. Okay, let me briefly introduce new products.
Wait.
The Alpha.
Wait. So we have we have the same fit. By the way, here's my Sony A1. Here's my A7R5. So if I'm not mistaken, do we have the same 50 megapixel sensor and the same 30 frames per second? Please tell me we do not have the exact, plus the AI processor. So it's like the A1 and the A7R5 had a baby. Sony, don't do this. Don't do this. I want to hear about the specifics. Where's Mark at? I know he's coming. Yep, there he is. I knew it. That dude is actually pretty cool. I like Mike.
It's the most wonderful time of the year in November, right?
He's the man. All right, I'm gonna let this play because I need to hear everything about it.
Mark III. And today we get to talk about something just as exciting, two new excitings, right? So to build off of what Oshima-san talked about, I always like to talk about our lineup. Well,
I want to hear about the lineup, Mike.
More Mark II, which is redefining what a flagship camera can be again. Building off of what the Alpha 1 is really good at, and then making it modern, really combining what we've learned over those past 3 years and adding that to the already powerful Alpha 1 system.
So let me tell you
something. And when you look at the Alpha 1 Mark II,
after the Sony is becoming like the modern day Apple. Before I say anything, I like I said, I haven't saw it yet, so I'm not going to assume. But when they say combining, for Sony, that means recycling. And that is what I'm hoping that they did not do. Again, because again, I am a Sony pro. All right. I've been shooting Sony forever. One of the biggest Sony channels you're going to find on YouTube. When Sony uses the word combining, that means recycling. And that's why a lot of Sony professionals like myself get pissed. And I feel the tension coming already. But I'm going to reserve judgment. I'm going to let it play.
you see these 5 pillars. Really, it's pretty unique because it has unbelievable autofocus, now enhanced by subject recognition. We have the resolution 50 megapixels enhanced by 30 frames per second. Incredible for movies, incredible operability and reliability, but what makes a flagship camera different is that it has the ability to connect and share like nothing else that's out there.
True.
At the heart of what an Alpha 1 is that sensor, that processor, and now adding that AI-based autofocus. So we have that the foundation that the Alpha 1 gave us, the 50 megapixels, 30 frames per second, but now we're enhancing all of that with a dedicated AI-based processing unit. And this is what makes this camera special. And why is it important to have?
Okay, hold on, wait. So, recycle, not combine. So we have the same sensor that's in the A1 that is in the A1 Mark II. So the same 50 megapixel sensor. Is it back illuminated or is it stacked? Because that makes a small difference. That makes a difference. But still, it's the same sensor. So right now, the A1 goes for $54.99. Remember when the A1 came out, it was $6,400, $6,500? So it's down $1,000. If I'm not mistaken, now I do know the A1 Mark II is at $65. So it is where the A1 was when it first came out. So $1,000, whatever. So here's strike one. Strike one. You're not going to get any better resolution with the A1 Mark II than you are with the A1. It's not. Sony did this a while ago. One of the first cameras that they did this with was the A7R II, and then they came out. with the A7R III, which was exactly like the A7R II. They was exactly the same, besides a few external upgrades. Nothing about the internals, nothing really about anything else. It had a better battery, it had a few upgrades to it, but it was the exact same camera. It got like an engine boost. That was it. Do you know who else performs like that or follows that same rhetoric? Apple. This is why I never really owned Apple phones until later in the year, and only because of photography. Remember all the Apple phones they would come out with, the 12, the 13, the 9, the 8, whatever. You know how many times everybody was like, oh, God, great, I got a better processor and a better camera, a better processor and a better camera, a better processor and a better camera with a few upgrades. Sony, you are becoming the modern day Apple, all right? I'm going to withhold judgment and continue to let this play out. But right now, I have the same exact camera, 50 megapixel sensor, 30 frames a second. So why would I go out and spend $6,500 on the A1 Mark II when I got all those same things in the A1? So far, I haven't heard this yet, but why? Okay, let's play. Let's let
Dedicated AI processing unit. The Alpha 1 did have AI. It could see the human eye. When that camera came out, I said it was cheating. I felt like it was cheating because you could see the eye of a person. You didn't have to manipulate the camera too much. Until a dedicated AI unit came out, taking away the power from the main processor so it can do all the other things, and then having all that processing in just its own separate processor. The way a computer has a graphics processor, you're going to be able to do a lot more with a designated processor. So we're able to do things like have the best animal autofocus, the best human autofocus, human pose estimation, which we'll talk about in a second. And for the first...
Okay, so they have taken the A1 processor, A1. They took the AI processor out of the A7R5, and now we have that dedicated AI processor in the A1 Mark II. So you took this out of here and you put it in here. Okay. I will say that the AI processor is great. It is very, very powerful, especially when tracking anything besides humans, birds, trains. The dedicated AI processor and being able to basically see something that should be there and focus on something that, okay, I know that person is here. I know the way they're walking or whatever. So to the camera, they're saying that the eyes should be about here. Now, that's really, really important if you're a photographer and you do night shoots or you're wearing glasses or something where it can't really see where the eye is at. That AI processor is a great assistant when it comes to finding and helping out to help you on telling you where that eye should be, right? So I do like the dedicated processor. It is definitely something that should be in a flagship camera. So let's continue.
First time in alpha, we actually have automatic subject recognition. So this way you don't have to go into your menu to change things. So if I'm doing a portrait with pets, which is a great way to do portraits, I can be able to have it. I don't have to go into my menu, take myself away from the moment in my camera to be able to get those beautiful shots. So what makes it special is a thing called human pose estimation. Being able to see not just the eye, but being able to see different parts of the body, being able to see the hips and the way the body moves to be able to estimate where the eye is going to be. So if you're under sunglasses or a helmet or the camera just simply can't see an eye, it can estimate where that eye is and focus on it.
Okay, so it sounds like the AI processor got an upgrade. The A7R5 has a dedicated AI processor, all right? So they have introduced something called human pose estimation. That is really, really good. So human pose estimation is really great for people who do really extravagant photography, especially when working with models. So have you ever saw people who who have models that do like really crazy stuff, like really big hats or hair, or, just to make them really full about, really big outfits, things like that. Which is really, really important, because if you have all this stuff on and you're using that dedicated AI processor with the human pose estimation, that will help the AI processor to help you like, okay, I see all that stuff and that's where I feel like the eye should be at, basically. So, which is really good as well. It can see where the arms are, see where the legs are. So it's basically processing all of that and then saying, this is where I think the eye should be at. So I think that's great. That's great for photographers who do a lot of that really extra stuff. So I'll write that down. Human pose okay. Human pose, I like that. Let's keep going.
And we also have an increased power when it comes to wildlife, eye autofocus for birds and animals, and even insects, making it the most powerful subject recognition tool out there. And it is cheating, right? So we can concentrate on the picture. We can concentrate on the moment. We can concentrate on our framing. We can concentrate on making the image instead of having to manipulate the image, instead of manipulating the hardware. I like to, never in my life would I think I could set my camera to wide autofocus and be happy with the results and be able to get every single frame sharp. But I do. I said it. I can put my camera to wide and be happy. But building off the Alpha 1, which already had an incredible autofocusing system, we have a 759-point phase detection autofocusing system. And because it's 50 megapixels,
you do know that was not increased. The A1 has 759 out of phase detection points. It's the same. The A1 has 759 as well.
And because it's 50 megapixels, even when you crop into APS-C, it's still 759-point phase detection autofocusing system covering 92% of the area down to -4 EV. Now that's -4 EV at f2, not 1.2, not 1, but at f2. So you're going to be able to get focus even in the lowest possible light. Now we talked about this camera being built off the foundation of the Alpha 1, but a lot of the innovation that we brought from the 9 Mark III is here as well, like the extra small, extra large, and custom focus areas. So if you do want to get in there and you want to make sure that you get the most precise or most versatile focusing spot, you can do that. You want to make a sliver on the bottom of the screen, you can make your own custom area. It's a pretty powerful tool. So now, 30 frames per second, but now assisted with real-time recognition autofocus. And we also have other enhancements to 30 frames per second that we'll talk about soon. But of course, this camera is completely blackout free. So when you're looking through the viewfinder, it's a true...
What are we doing, man? What are we doing, Sony? God, bro, what are we doing? The A1 has 30 frames a second and is also assisted with real-time AF recognition. The A1 has blackout. The A1 is blackout free. I'm just saying. Oh my God, man. Let's keep going.
Camera experience. No blackout through the viewfinder the same way you would back in the day with an optical viewfinder. It makes a big difference. Now this is always a stat that completely blows my mind. 120 calculations of autofocus and auto exposure per second. So 4 times per shot, you're auto-focusing and auto exposure compensate. You're calibrating for autofocus and auto exposure. So every single time, you know that you're going to get the shot correct. You know you're going to get the best possible color reproduction, focus, and exposure. So one of the ways that we enhance 30 frames per second is with pre-capture. Pre-capture to me is completely game.
Pre-capture, okay. For what I do, I don't need pre-capture. Okay. As you guys know, I recently did a review on the A9 III. All right. If you haven't saw it, go look at it. It was great. I used it. It was awesome. Did I use pre-capture? No. Now, having pre-capture in your flagship camera is beneficial. All right. Being able to capture before you actually press the shutter or after the shutter is great. You won't miss that moment, and it's really great. And it can do it up to 30 frames a second. So it's really easy to get that actual shot. If you are a wedding photographer, it's great. If you are an event photographer, it's great. If you are a sports photographer, it is absolutely game-changing if you shoot sports. Sports and wildlife, it's game-changing. Pre-captured is the best thing that you can actually have. So if you shoot sports or you're dedicated wildlife, hands down, the best thing that you could have on a camera. In modeling or in portrait photography like I do, you can get away with pre-capture. Now, there are situations where I might shoot a model and you know how we like, hey, 3, 2, 1, shoot. You know, sometimes, and some of you photographers out there have probably experienced this, where you're counting down and you're giving your model that time, and then when you get that shot, they just got their eyes closed, and you're like, oh, that was such a dope shot, but your eyes was closed. Well, if you have pre-capture, that can actually help with that. How often does that happen? It depends on your models, not so much, because people who know how to shoot with flash, people who know how to do things, whatever. Is it enough to make me buy the A9 III or the A1 Mark II? No, because I don't need it like that. Absolutely not. But again, to each his own. But it is definitely something that is great for a camera, is great for a photographer. So it is what it is. I'm not giving a strike or anything, but it's good that they added it to the A1 Mark II. Okay.
The moment before you actually captured the moment. We've all missed the shot, right? So now pre-capture helps you to be able to not miss the shot. As you have your finger halfway on the shutter, it's continuously recording images before you press the shutter. I always use the extreme example of a bird flying off of a branch, but even trying to get that special, perfect facial expression of a portrait, or that perfect expression, or that dirt flying off a dirt bike wheel, whatever it is, Pre-capture saves the day, and it saves the day quite often. It saves the day for me a lot. And we are doing it in the most versatile way. You can calibrate it to do anything from a full second, which is great, all the way down to 3/100ths of a second, and it mimics whatever your shooting is for your traditional shooting. Another way that we enhanced 30 frames per second is with speed boost. Because let's face it, 30 frames per second is still really, really fast. And you don't always need 30 frames per second. Or if you do, cool. It's fine. I don't always need 30 frames per second because then you have to go through all those images. So what we did was we separated a way, or made a way that you don't have to take your eyes off the viewfinder to be able to get a faster frame rate. So we basically have two different shutter buttons that can do different frame rates. So I can be shooting the camera at 10 frames per second without taking my eyes off out of the viewfinder and without taking my hand off the shutter, and then press the custom button on the front of the camera to shoot to 30 frames per second. So when that peak action happens, I can increase the shutter to 30 frames per second.
So that's pretty cool. I don't know if when I had the A9 III I was able to do that, but basically what he's saying is that if you're using the shutter button and you're shooting at 10 frames a second and you want to speed to 30 frames a second without taking your eye off of out of the viewfinder or whatever, you can easily use that other finger to press that that speed boost button, which is like right here on the A9 III. That C5 button, you can do this and then press that button and then it'll go to 30 frames a second, which is pretty cool. I like that. Okay. Pretty good. Good job, Sony. All right. I hear you.
It's pretty incredible. That way you can get the action, you can get that moment without having to take your eyes away from the camera. Because normally you'd have to go and spin a dial, you have to go into the menu. Now I don't have to do that. And it's not just the custom button in the front, but you can customize it to any other button on the camera as well. Let's talk about the heart of the camera, that 50 megapixel sensor. It is a stunning sensor. A lot of us have used it. A lot of us have seen the images from it. This sensor is absolutely gorgeous. It's not just about 50 megapixels, but it's a fully stacked sensor.
All right, so I wasn't sure about that, and that's what I wanted to know. So the sensor on the A1 Mark II is a fully stacked, CMOS sensor. So the sensor on the A1 is a back illuminated sensor. It's not stacked. So point, you're not still gonna get the same image quality, but it's stacked. Faster readouts. That's basically what you're gonna get. It's gonna seem like you're gonna get faster readouts, but I promise you, if you put the A1 Mark II against the A1, even with that stacked sensor, I bet you won't see much of a difference. I promise you that.
Still, to this day, one of the fastest readout speeds of any global shutter camera out there. Incredibly fast readout speed. And because it's 50 megapixels, we're able to crop in at 23 megapixels for APS-C, utilize that full autofocusing system, and to be able to have a really versatile camera and be able to get more out of your lenses because you have the resolution to build off of.
The A1 has 14. It's either 14 or 14.5. I'll double triple check when after this, but the A1 Mark II only has a stop more of a dynamic range. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure the A1 is either 14 or 14.5. What are we doing, man? Why? What are we?
Because you have the resolution to build off of. On top of that, we have great dynamic range. 15 stops dynamic range at 50 megapixels makes this camera in a really high class in terms of image quality. And we've also given it, with our new processing, we've have reduced noise in the mid and high ISOs in JPEGs, giving us incredible image quality. And because of that AI processing unit, it doesn't just do subject recognition. Because it does do subject recognition and it's able to see the form, able to see the scene better than what we've had before, we're going to get improved white balance, improved auto exposure, and improved color reproduction. So it's not just about subject recognition. It helps in giving us the best possible image quality you can get out of the camera. And again, we've seen the images out of this camera. It's designed to give you the best possible image quality that a camera can give you. It's absolutely stunning. And like I said before, when you have 50 megapixels, you can crop in, you can zoom, you can do creative things when it comes to 8K, you can do creative things when it comes to cropping in, you can use it for APS-C and be able to be rest assured that you're going to get extreme resolution all the way through. So besides the hardware of adding a dedicated AI processing unit, we've added hardware of adding an 8.5 stop in-body.
8.5 stops of in-body stabilization is really good. The A1 has 5.5, if I'm not mistaken. 5.5 was even great, even better. I mean, 5.5 was absolutely great. I thought that was amazing. This has 8.5. So everybody who really likes to handhold, man, that is going to make for some amazing hand-holding shots. I mean, just think about hand-holding and running next to somebody, or, you know, moving your camera and everything and trying to hold and withstand the shake, even when you're walking slow. There's a lot of rigs that might be set up with the A1 Mark II, especially for that 8.5 stops of in-body stabilization. Okay, I got you. Not bad. Let's keep going.
That's the strongest stabilizer that we've ever produced on any of our cameras. That's 3 stops better than what we have on the original Alpha 1. And we've enhanced that by having better communication with an image stabilized lens, so that way you can get better overall performance and steadier performance through the viewfinder when you're using a stabilized lens, and the 8.5 stops in the camera itself. Now, something that we started to do back with the 7R5 is composite RAW functionality. And one of the things that we do now on this camera that we brought out with the 9 Mark III is noise reduction shoot setting. So you can shoot up to 32 raw images at whatever ISO, combine them in post-processing, and then have an outputted image that gives you almost no noise. It's absolutely incredible how that combination and that composition can give you unbelievable image quality. Now, of course, this camera does also have pixel shift multi-shooting, so you can get up to a 200 megapixel file with all of the color information and RGB for every single pixel, giving you image quality that you just simply cannot get with one single image. So I talked about this camera as being not just a great stills camera, but being a great video camera. It's still, to this day, some of the best 8K footage you can get out of an interchangeable lens camera. Full width of the sensor, full pixel readout, 8K 30p with 8.6K.
My A1 does 8K if I need it, and it does 8K 24. So I like using 30p over 24p, to be honest with you, but there's a lot of people who love shooting in 24p. So I don't have the A1 Mark II. I wasn't fortunate enough to get one, even though I'm one of the biggest Sony shooters, but whatever. All right, let's keep going.
Time. But that makes you know it's unbelievable 8K. If you haven't seen the 8K footage out of this camera, you have to see it because it's absolutely stunning. Again, because of the high resolution, we're able to then also punch into Super 35 and get even faster readout speeds, if that's possible, and be able to get 4K 60p with 5.
Wait. For a flagship camera, you mean to tell me that 4K 60 is cropped 1.5? What are we doing, man? You couldn't do 4K 60 uncropped on a flagship camera? That would have been even a better selling point, to make sure it wasn't cropped. Like, a lot of people probably would have been like, oh, cool, you know what? I'm going to get at least 4K 120 and 4K 60 ain't cropped. Out of a 5.8K oversample sensor, man. What are we doing? It's cropped, man. Why? Why did you feel the need to have to crop it? It didn't have to be cropped. Ugh.
0.8K oversampling. So it works as an amazing Super 35 camera as well as a full frame camera. All of the other amazing accoutrements that we have for our video.
just to let you know, the A1 regular does 10-bit 422 all-I. It does 16 raw output over HDMI. He's talking like it's 16 raw bit output internal or something like that. It's 16-bit raw output over HDMI. And then you don't, a lot of times, a lot of people have actually tested it. You don't even get 16-bit. You get like 12-bit. Go figure. And we have S-Cinetone and S-Log3.
And S-Log3. Still the most beautiful profiles out there. Other things that we evolved with our movie production on this camera is, of course, the addition of real-time subject recognition. And that enables us to do things that no one else can do. Auto framing, framing stabilizer, things that we introduced with the Z.
So you remember when I did my video on the ZVE1 and I took it back like the next day or the next 2 days because it was overheating, especially shooting in like 4K 120 or 4K 60 for like, 30 minutes to an hour, it started to overheat. One of the main things that a lot of other people complained about. One thing that I definitely loved about the ZVE1 was the real-time AI recognition and the auto framing and the framing stabilizer. Being able to stand there and basically the lens will basically follow you, almost like somebody was holding the camera. And you're able to do that without actually putting it on the gimbal and putting the gimbal right here and having a gimbal, set up, to follow you. Kind of like my Hohem, that has AI tracking on it, the gimbal itself. So I can put my camera on my gimbal and it'll track me. But the ZVE1, you was able to just put on a camera stand or a tripod and you still get that without having to use an actual gimbal. I did like that. I am glad they put that in the Sony A1 Mark II. That is a really, really cool feature because that a lot of times as content creators, we don't always have somebody to follow us or to record our things. So being able to basically do it on your own and still get that like real cinematic type look, you know what I'm saying? Like instead of it being stationary, it's a good feature. It is a really, really good feature. So kudos to them for putting that on there.
Camera as well. Being able to have the camera recognize your subject, zoom into your desired crop level, and follow your subject wherever it goes. Meanwhile, the camera's just sitting on a tripod doing its thing. You can trust the camera to be able to be a production tool for you, as well as being a tool that you can manipulate itself. Dynamic active mode stabilization, which combines electronic stabilization with that 8.5 stop stabilization of the camera. So with a slight crop, you're going to be able to get gimbal-like stabilization in the camera. So I can be walking next to my subject as they're walking and be able to get footage that is really, really beautiful. And now we can import up to 16 user LUTs, so you can create your look on your time in your computer and then bring it into your camera so you can see it the way that you envisioned it in the camera itself.
He should have actually put that out because dynamic active mode, that stabilization, is another crop. I think it's like a 0.9 something crop or whatever the case may be. I don't know if it's the same on the A1 Mark II, but he didn't say that. He just said dynamic active mode stabilization, but he didn't say that it has a crop. On the A1, it's a crop, which if you're already using something and you're shooting in Super 35, well, it's going to crop in even more. All right.
Great things with shot marks where you can be recording video and then create an image directly into your stills folder, into your camera, and be able to use shot marks the way they're intended to be used. And of course, 4896 shutter speeds for your 24p workflow. Everything that you need from a video standpoint is here on this camera as well. That 4-axis LCD monitor.
This is the A7R5. The best monitor, the best angle, best LCD we have on a camera. I love that. I love it. It's the great thing. They finally put it because on the A1, it's only a tilt. This is one of the biggest things, the biggest problems that I had with the Sony A1 because there's a lot of times I wanted to use this camera, but if you guys know me, I'm all about angles. My angles are crazy. I've been on the dirt, I've been on the ground, and I've been having to, I love getting those shots, but then I have to go to my A7R5 because then I can get that shot like this, I can get that shot like that, I can get that shot like that, I can get that shot like everything. I couldn't do that on the Sony A1. So you don't know how valuable and you don't know how extremely important that is until you talk to real photographers. Photographers who really get low and get those angles, or really get high and get crazy cinematic shots that we need. And I'm glad they put it on there, because that angle, that lens, that, I'm sorry, not the lens, that LCD screen, that monitor is amazing. It is all of that. So they put it on this one.
Every time we talk about it, we're like, please, does it have the LCD monitor? Please, please, please. Well, it does, of course. If you look at the body of this camera, it's almost identical to the 9 Mark III. It has that multi-angle LCD screen. It still has one of the highest resolution viewfinders, EVFs, out there. A 9.
Newsflash. This Sony A1 has a 9.4 dot milli dot EVF. Million dot OLED EVF. The A7R5 has a 9.44 EVF. I'm just saying. What are we doing, man? What are we doing, Sony? Like, come on, man. Are you so hard up with innovation that you just have to recycle everything? Like, what are we doing, man? This is why Canon is about to take over. This is why Canon is about to take over. I'm going to hold my thoughts to that.
EVF, capable of giving you a refresh rate up to 240 frames per second. It's a beautiful, immersive experience. And now we include
Yay! We got the squishy eyepiece cup.
Doesn't seem that exciting?
We got the eyepiece cup.
I was kind of excited about it, right? Yeah. Never thought I'd be on stage talking about eyepiece cups, but here we are, right?
We got the eyepiece cup. Yay! Yay! The eyepiece cup. I will tell you that the eyepiece cup is great. I'm just saying. For a lot of people who use that EVF and use that viewfinder a lot, like these eyepiece cups, these things are uncomfortable and they hurt. I'm just saying. Like it's crazy. Like this thing should be like a hard plastic almost. It's not comfortable at all. But now you have a squishy, bushy at least they gave us an eyepiece cup.
We have the FDA EP21, aka the squishy eyepiece cup, is what I like to call it. So it gives you just a more immersive experience into the viewfinder. It separates your face a little bit more from the camera, so you're not squishing your nose against the camera. It's just nice to have. It's beautiful. It's in the box. It's a nice thing to have. So, like I said before, the camera is very, very similar in terms of ergonomics to the 9 Mark III. And that's a really, really good thing, because if you ever use the 9 Mark III, as soon as you pick it up, you're like, that's the way it's supposed to feel. That feels amazing. Where we've moved the shutter button more towards the front of the camera, so it's completely ergonomic to your hand, so you don't get tired.
The grip. I told you guys about this in the last video I did when I had the A9 Mark III. When I grip the A1, my fingers in this little grip, they touch. They touch, but I normally have to like move my hand over the grip a little bit more uncomfortable, but I can get it. Now, if I was to just do this normal, like just trying to pick it up and not to impress nobody or myself, and just pick it up, just out of just naturalism, my fingers probably wouldn't touch. When I had the A9 Mark III, just picking it up, kind of natural, my fingers can get around that grip. The grip on the A9 III is smaller because the body is slightly smaller on the, slightly. Like, it's really hard to kind of tell the difference. I have both of them together. Now, if you don't know, like, the A1 and the A9 III have basically the exact same body. Every button, every dial, everything on this camera is in the exact same spot on the A9 III. The exact same spot. The only thing that the A9 III has that the A1 doesn't is that custom button right up here in the front. So basically, if the A1 Mark II is set up exactly like the A9 III, then it's going to be exactly like the A1. But it's going to have just I say a smaller grip, because this grip on the A1 felt bigger than the A9 III. that was my take on it.
With all-day shooting, it just feels right. We have that custom button on the front of the camera, the C5, and of course, all the other things that we introduced on the 9 Mark III as well. But this is a flagship camera, so we want to talk about the flagship things. We want to talk about having a camera that can connect and have an enhanced workflow. One of the things that we did, we gave it a new dedicated microphone. And when you have that new dedicated microphone, if you use tag and transfer, which you should because it's amazing, when you transfer that image, those words become text and they can go directly into the metadata of your file. So when whoever's on the other end of that, whoever's receiving that image can then know everything about that image because it's directly into the metadata in text form, and you didn't have to do anything but talk to your camera. And you don't have to utilize the microphones on top of the camera, so it's got wind reduction, etc. It's just the best implementation. Now, in terms of transferring your images, it's the fastest wired LAN we've ever had on an alpha camera, 2.5 G-base-T, so 2.5 gigabits per second.
The A1 is 2.4, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, the A1 is 2.4 gigahertz. This is 2.5. I don't know if that's I can't tell if that will be faster. I can't test the speeds on both of them. I just know that the A1 is 2.4, A1 Mark II, 2.5.
2.5 times faster than even the 9 Mark III, making this an incredibly fast transfer camera. Improved FTP functionality, so if you have the honor of working with FTP protocols, that's always fun. You can do that separately on your phone and then transfer it directly into the camera instead of using the on LCD screen keyboard, which is always fun. So we've talked so much about hardware. We talk about lenses all the time.
So wait, I'm guessing that that's all about the A1. Hold on, let me double check, because I don't care about none of the software. That's it. All right, let's talk about the G Master lens before we end this.
It is extremely light and compact. I think I might have. Here we go. It's happened. That's fine. We must rebuild. It'll be fine. So it's an extremely light and compact camera, less than 1 kilogram. I loved when people started to guess what this lens was going to be, and they said it's impossible to make a lens like this under 1 kilogram. Well, we did it. It's 918 grams.
Okay, so 32.3 ounces, 918 grams. So to give you, I don't think I have one, but to give you kind of an idea of what that is like. Okay, so this is probably their most expensive G Master lens, honestly, besides the other ones. This is the 12 to 24, as you can see the G. This is the 12 to 24, 2.8. This is a $3,000 lens, just like that one. I will actually trade this $3,000 lens for that $3,000 lens. But this weighs 2 pounds. So 2 pounds. That 918 grams is around 2 pounds and 2 ounces. Something like that. It's about 2 pounds, something like that in poundage. All right. So it weighs basically almost the same as this. So this kind of gives me an idea of how much that lens weighs. So it's still got a little weight on it. All right. This is 2 pounds. 2 pounds exactly, almost. So that lens will weigh just about that. Which will still be really good for gimbal work. A lot of gimbals, as long as it has a really good payload, around 6 pounds, 4 pounds payload, you should have no problem with that lens on a gimbal. Even the hand holding. 28 to 70 f2. Let's talk about that. Right now, when I do video, normally my favorite lens to use is the 35 millimeter. I feel like the 35 millimeter is the perfect focal length for video. All right. As you can see, 35 millimeters is basically right in the middle, almost between 28 to 70. Well, you're right there at 35, 40, ish focal length. So it's kind of almost like right in the middle. But I like shooting at that 1.4 aperture. I normally use my Sigma 35mm 1.4, you know, for all my video, because I use my 35 1.2 by Sigma to get so when I'm doing photos, to use that for my photo shoot. So I don't want to use, so I bought the 35 1.4 for video, and I have the 35 1.2 for portraits, right? So shooting at that 28 to 70 f2, I think will probably make for one of the best video lenses that you can, because there have been times where I either wanted to zoom out a little bit further for 28mm, you know, that's saying, or go in like 20, because I used to use a 24mm all the time. Most people who do video, they use either a 24 or 35. But being able to go down to 28 and go as far as 70, because there's been plenty of times I wanted to punch in and use or get like a really good shallow depth of field in video and just used it artistically for other stuff, and I basically couldn't. You know, I wanted to get rid of some of that background in video and basically just make it about the client, or make it about the talent that I'm shooting. So the only thing with Prime is you lose that versatility. Now, I haven't heard, I don't know if it's an internal or external zoom yet. I'm gonna play it and hopefully he says it. If it's an internal zoom, it's game over. All right, I'm probably gonna get it. But if it's not if it's an external zoom, probably not. That's not something that I can really see myself actually needing. I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence with it. I do know that it's almost $3,000. I think it's like $2,899. But it will just be a video lens. That's not something I will use for portraits. So my portrait lens is my 35 to 150 now, especially when I'm doing events. But I have other lenses, 1.4s, 1.2s, that would kill that lens when it comes to photography. But that would be something that would probably be a dedicated video lens only. If I'm out, if I'm shooting, I got that 28 to 70 on there, and is at an f2. And there is a big difference to some people between f2 and 2.8. That is a full stop of light. All right. And that is a big difference, especially if you shoot nighttime photography or it's nighttime video. And there's a lot of times you need that extra stop of light, and having to dial in that extra stop of light on your ISO could be crucial depending on the scenario. So 28 to 70 at f2. I'm kind of on the fence with that one. I can see it. They said it's light and compact. I can see that being the only video lens that I need. You know, hopefully if they come out with the FX3 Mark II or the A7S5 is what A7S4 is what I'm praying for. I can see that being a crazy nice zoom lens, especially if you have something like the RS4, which is what I'm going to be reviewing here shortly. I got the DJI RS4. I'm going to be going over that shortly, but they have that zoom actuation system there where you can put that on there instead of using that for manual focusing. You can use that actually on your zoom. So being able to rack zooms and stuff like that in and out, I think would be absolutely great. Like, that is a setup, A7S3 or 4 or FX3 Mark II, combined with that lens on a gimbal like the RS4 that can actually zoom in and zoom out for you at the push of a button or whatever, would be a crazy setup. So I don't know, $3,000 for that lens. I don't know. We'll have to come back to that. Let's go ahead and finish the video.
32.3 ounces. And again, we're doing this without having to rely on electronic compensation. We're doing this without having to have all that compensation in the camera itself. So we talked about how sharp this lens is. We talked about how light we were able to make it, but we didn't sacrifice on anything else. We gave it the most powerful focusing system that we have. 4 XD linear motors, 4 of the most advanced, most powerful, most precise focusing motors that we've ever introduced on this lens, to be able to make it work up to 120 frames per second with the Alpha 9 Mark III, being able to have it work up to 240 frames per second in video, able to keep focus while you're zooming, while you're tracking, while you're moving yourself and the person's moving. You're able to rely on the focusing system of the camera and have the lens be able to keep up no matter what shooting scenario you're at. Like I said before, this lens is designed just as much for stills as it is for video. You can see from this example, there's almost no focus breathing on this lens whatsoever. This is with focus breathing compensation turned off. You can always turn it on if you need mathematically perfect focus breathing, but this is with it turned off. So this lens really is a beautiful video lens. On top of that, we have linear response manual focus, so you can get repeatable manual focus. It works with dynamic active mode stabilization, the in-body focus breathing compensation. And one thing that makes this lens special too is that it is an external zoom, but it extends only about a little bit more than a half an inch. So if you do have it on a gimbal,
So I just asked that. Is it external or internal? So he said it does zoom, but it only zooms out almost at least a half an inch. That is astounding. All right. You take something like the 35 to 150 that that externally zooms about like 3 inches or 4 inches, something like that. A half an inch is like that. That's like a half an inch. So you mean to tell me you can be at 28 and go all the way to 70 and only be at a half an inch? That might be a game changer, because being able to go only like a half an inch and be fully extended all the way out to 70 millimeters, that is game changing. Like, I don't know how many lenses do that, especially not even the 24 to 70 zooms that much. You gotta turn that thing and it goes out way more than a half an inch. That, and it's an f2. Woo. All right, we're not gonna watch the video. Okay, so my thoughts about the A1 Mark II. Lord, please give me strength. Give me strength. I have no idea what Sony is doing. I'm a little bit perturbed. As me as being a Sony shooter, a professional photographer shooting strictly Sony, I am familiar with almost every camera that Sony has came out with, whether it be portraits or video. All right, I'm very, very familiar with all of their cameras, the setup, buttons, everything, what they can do and what they can't do. The first thing I'm gonna tell you is that I think this is absolute trash. I'm sorry, I think it's trash. I think it's garbage. I really do. There is no reason to get the A1 Mark II. Absolutely no reason. Here's the thing: if you don't have the A1, or if you don't have the A1 and you want a really, really, really big professional camera, I am going to recommend that you get the A1 Mark II over the A1, but very slightly, because now guess what? You can find the A1, the original A1, for cheaper than $5,500. Right now, you can get it brand new for $5,500. You can find it probably used for about $4,500. So you're talking about 45, 46, whatever the case may be. I don't know. Hell, I might even sell mine for $4,500. If you want to hit me up. And mine is pretty much brand new with the skin. All right. But I can't recommend that. If you can find an A1 Mark I used, absolutely get it. I would not pay $6,500 for this camera when 90% of what's in this camera is on the A1 Mark II. Like, come on, Sony, man. What are we doing? You cannot be that serious. Why are you recycling so much stuff? It's like Sony has forgotten how to innovate. They have forgotten how to be creative, even though they're hey, look at the pun in that. You're holding the event in creative space with a camera that has nothing to do with creativity. Like Like, this is supposed to be the flagship camera. This thing is supposed to be dominant. The A1 is basically, it's the same exact camera. They did that with the A7R II, and when they came out with the A7R III, it was the exact same camera, man. The biggest difference in cameras was the A7R IV, which I had, and the A7R V. Those were completely different cameras. I absolutely love the A7R V. It is not like the A7R IV. Even though it has a 61 megapixel sensor, almost everything about it was different. I love it. This camera is the exact same. The only thing that you don't get out of the A1, the only thing that you don't get with the A1 that you get with the A1 Mark II, you get the 8.5 stops of stabilization. Whoop-de-doo, great. Who cares? I don't care, really. You get the monitor, the flippy screen that you get on the A7R V. You get the dedicated AI processor, better tracking, all right? So, tracking, what does this say? I don't know. So, tracking, 8.5 stops of stabilization, and the screen, the monitor, and 8K 30. Everything else that they spoke about the A1 Mark II is in the A1. 759 phase detection points, blackout free, 30 frames a second, 1/400th of a second. Still, he didn't talk about your maximum flash sync speed. Hello, flash photographers, we would like to know that because we know it don't have a global shutter. So, for all you guys out there, yes, it's still 1/400th of a second. For $6,500, no way in the world. I recommend you don't buy this camera. Now, if you don't have it and you want to get a fully professional dedicated camera, absolutely get it. But I would honestly, I would get the A7R V over the A1. I honestly would, man, because you get a dedicated AI processor with the A7R V. You get a better resolution. You get a 61 megapixel sensor camera. You get 8K 24. These are Sony's 8K cameras. I have both cameras that are capable of doing 8K. The A1 and the A7R V. Both of these can do 8K. Now they have a third camera that can do 8K. The A1 Mark II. Still, these two cameras, these can do 8K. The A7R V can do 8K. The A7R V has a flippy turny screen that you recycled and put in the A1 Mark II. The A7R V has an AI dedicated chip. The A7R V has 693 phase detection points. What are we doing, man? What are we doing, man? I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. I think this is a fail. I think Sony has lost its. I think they have lost their passion to innovate. I felt like this on several cameras that they've came out with. Several cameras that just has made no sense. Several cameras that was a piece of crap and that they really needed. They did not need to come out with. I'm really going on a rant right now because they have really did this over and over and over. And a lot of Sony people, or a lot of Sony creators, really Sony professional people, we're sick of this, man. It's like crazy. And you wonder why Canon has been sitting back and Canon has been coming out with everything. They don't care. They throw the kitchen sinks at their camera. I mean, hell, their R5, that thing can do 8K 60, raw internal, false color, everything on it. That thing kills the A1 Mark II. That thing is 45 megapixels, but when you talk about the things that it can do and the dedication to their cameras and stuff, the RF mount glass, man, like, I don't even shoot Canon, but I'm going to tell you what's real. That camera has way more bells and whistles than this camera. Like, that's just the way it is. But they are continuously coming out with things and listening to their people, and and giving you a lot of things in all their cameras. I mean, they are doing it big. While Sony is over here recycling and just throwing pieces together and calling it freaking wine and whiskey or whatever the case may be. But they're just throwing things at these cameras, man. They did that with the A7C. Why did we need the A7C? Because it was small and compact. A7C stands for compact, full frame, but compact. It was the same exact camera as the A7 III. We didn't need the A7C when we already had the A7 III. It was a waste of money. It was, nobody cares that it was this small. It's a camera, man. It's a mirrorless camera. They didn't need to come out with the A7CR. They're throwing resources in all these cameras and just coming out with stuff that does not make any sense. And they're not listening to people like myself who are out here on the streets doing these things day in and day out. I don't know who they listening to, but it don't sound like they listening to actual photographers, man. What they are doing, all of this cannibalizing, because that's what it is. They are doing nothing but recycling and cannibalizing these parts, putting them into other cameras and calling it gold. And it's not. It is absolutely not. My A1 can do exactly what that camera can do. You know, this camera is very, very reliable. The AI processor in the A7R5 makes this an amazing, reliable camera for $4,000, cheaper than $4,000. So why would I pay $6,500 for the A1 Mark II when I can either find the A1 for around $5,000, $4,700, somewhere around there, and you can get the A7R5 for around $32, $33, maybe even cheaper than that? Like why? What are we doing, man? What are we doing, dog? Yo, that's my rant, man. Yo, that's my rant, man. I don't have anything else to say. I'm very, very disappointed in Sony. I'm very disappointed with this launch. I'm very disappointed with what they are trying to do. They have not. I'm very disappointed. I am. The passion, the lack of innovation, the lack of research, everything. You cannot tell me that you are in Sony and you can go to sleep at night knowing that you came out with the best camera in the entire world. Like, your camera is so great. It's so innovative. We killed it with this. Everybody's about to buy this camera for $6,500. You mean to tell me that's how you feel right now? You really feel that you came out with the amazing flagship camera, the second coming of Flagship? That is, this camera is supposed to be way better, at least 70%. You know what? I'll even give you 60. This camera is supposed to be at least 60% better than the previous model. That camera is like 10% better than the previous model. There is no reason for it. You didn't change the sensor. You didn't change the FPS. You didn't change the phase detection. You didn't change basically anything on it. You changed the monitor and the stabilization, and you put a dedicated AI processor in it. And you mean to tell me that that's the best that you could do? I'm done. I'm done. This is a wash. I will not be buying this camera. I don't recommend anybody out there buy this camera. If you don't already have one, that's one thing. But I highly recommend you go for the A7R5 or you find a cheap A1. There is no reason to pay $6,500 for this camera. I think it's dumb. I think it's stupid. I don't care if Sony doesn't invite me to another event. They need to hear this. And I know they watch my videos, but this is completely dumb. And I think anybody who is really dedicated to Sony and is an actual Sony professional and a Sony shooter, if you don't see the lack of innovation behind what they have done, you kidding yourself. You are absolutely kidding yourself. I am praying if they come out with the A7S IV or the FX3 Mark II that it will rival. That it will be completely unmatched, that it will rival any video camera out there, because the trend And the way that Sony is going right now is sickening. It is absolutely sickening, and I don't know what they're doing, but this ain't it, man. This is not it. I think it's I'm done. Ace A1 Mark II, man. A1 Mark II, my bro. Holla, it's your boy.